Hey, before we jump in, I have a question for you. Do you spend more time thinking about making art than actually making it? Start things that you never finish, make work, and then stack it against the wall facing away from you so you don't have to look at it? If any of that sounds familiar, I want to talk to you. I'm developing a program right now specifically for artists dealing with self doubt and creative blocks. And to make it actually helpful, I want to understand what's really hard for you right now. So I'm looking for artists to interview, to talk with. This is purely research. There's no pitch. It's just me wanting to know what's going on with you in your studio. And I am happy to answer your questions about creative confidence in exchange. So if that sounds like you, go to savvypainter.com/survey to tell me what's going on. And if we're a good fit, I will reach out to you to schedule a call. That's savvypainter.com/survey. Okay, let's get started with today's episode. Hey there, it's Antreese, and I want to welcome you to an episode of Savvy Painter. I am rebroadcasting a series that is absolutely one of my favoriteest series that I have ever done. It is a series of conversations with growth studio artists, and I was going through my files the other day and I listened to these again and I was just like, oh my God, these are so good. Just so, so good. So I thought I would rebroadcast them again. If you haven't listened to them, you are in for a treat, I promise you. And if you have listened to these before, I'm going to bet you will get something different out of it. I definitely did. And I was sitting right there with everybody when we recorded them, obviously. Anyway, let's jump in. Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of the Savvy Painter podcast. I am your host, Antreese Wood. If you've been listening for a while, welcome back. And if you are new here, welcome. I'm so glad you found me. Savvy Painter is the podcast for artists who want practical, tactical tips to create a meaningful art practice that is both fulfilling and supports you. With this episode, we are continuing a series of roundtable conversations with artists from Growth Studio. Each episode is a standalone, so don't worry if you're just coming in now. You do not need to have listened to them in order. You can just keep on keeping on. So in this episode, you are going to hear from Merrie, Andrew Ray, and Alyssa Marquez. We're going to explore ideas around creative confidence, how we shape it, how it impacts what we create, whether we show our work, and whether we do or don't sell our work. We also talk about how peer support and constructive criticism helps build our creative confidence, as well as some of the differences between humility, confidence, and arrogance. I know a lot of artists sort of struggle with this idea of having confidence and whether or not you can have too much. So we dive into all of that in this episode. So let's start with some introductions and then we'll just jump right in. So, Alyssa, what is your definition of creative confidence?
When I think of creative confidence, I think of, I guess it's like you said, having your own back or trusting yourself, even when you haven't maybe done something like this before, or you don't have all the skills. Like, you trust yourself to figure it out, or like if you go forward and you can't figure it out, like, you know that you'll be able to go to somebody, or I don't know, just having faith in yourself to go forward with a project, even though you've like never done it before. Like, I'm just thinking about a lot of like the woodworking stuff that I've done that I like never done before, but yet I still like delved in because I knew I wanted to learn it, and I just knew that I could do it. And then I also think about creative confidence and being like just very true to yourself. Yeah, having, again, trusting yourself enough to like express what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you're interested in, and not holding that back, being worried, of what somebody might interpret of it, or even if you don't quite understand it, but still going forth.
That's a good one, even when we don't understand it and still going forward.
So those are the two things I thought of with creative confidence.
How about you, Merrie?
Well, I happen to have picked confidence as my word for the year. So I had looked it up, and came up with the Latin root, which is cont, with, and then fidentia, which is faith. And like what Alyssa just said, it's to go with faith, to have certainty in oneself. And it's such a simple concept, but it's hard to do. They're your favors, even though it's you, it's hard to imagine that you wouldn't go with yourself. But yet it's so critical. I mean, no, all of the art I've ever created required having faith in myself, having this little glimmer of an idea and having the faith to make it. So if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to do anything. I wouldn't have a body of art, because there's, you have this faith that this vision of this thing that you want to make is going to happen, even though you are struggling and it's not happening and you're doing everything you can, you still keep going.
Yeah. And I mean, what do you all think about that? Because I think that a lot of the understanding of confidence, or it doesn't seem like we really stop to think, like, what actually is confidence? What does it actually mean? And what does it mean to me personally? But the thing that I love about what you said is the idea of faith, and that being such a major part of confidence, because I think some of the misunderstandings or the maybe just assumptions, like the internalized assumptions, is for a lot of people is that confidence means that you've got this sort of like almost like a bravado, or you're, like it's that, versus faith is something completely different. Faith is believing in something without proof that it exists, and without having, without being able to see it, or, and when you really pull it apart and think about what that means to really consider what it means to have faith in yourself on that level, it's really profound.
It is really profound. It makes me think about, is that the one thing that people have or don't that actually decide to make the art, because, you want to paint, you want to draw, you want to like sculpt, and it sounds amazing. And then to make that leap to actually doing it, that's just creative, not just, but that's creative.
Yeah.
That takes you there. And like, if I hadn't believed in myself, then I would have never been like, yeah, let's take some time to do art, just work on art. Would never have done that if there wasn't some confidence.
Yeah. Yes.
And also a belief that what you have to say is important, and that takes confidence.
I love that so much. And it does take an enormous amount of faith to be an artist, and to be able and to trust yourself enough to say what you want to say, and to have that faith that what you're saying is valuable, it has meaning, and it's worth sharing. And those are, I think, hurdles for a lot of artists. Yeah.
And often the business of life, kind of what Andrew was saying, takes over, and you at that point where you're faced with these colossal questions, how do you make a living? And at that moment, well, that's when your faith becomes tested. Like, so you're going to have a day job, but you're still going to do your artwork. Like each time you come upon one of these, like moments in life where you have to make decisions, to always come back, even though, you're taking a teaching gig and it keeps you from making art, like knowing that in your heart, you're still an artist. You're still thinking about art, even though you're not making it. Or you dream about it. And in that way you are kind of making it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we are by default, we're constantly making art. And maybe that's because I have a expansive view of art, that it is what we create in our studios. And I mean, your wife is a dancer, is that right, Andrew?
Yes.
Do I remember that right? Yes.
Yeah.
So there's the physical art, and then there's the art that we put on the canvas or that we sculpt or however it is that we're creating it. And then, I mean, I genuinely believe that our life is the biggest piece of art we'll ever make. And the way that we integrate our life with our expression, regardless of what it is, I know that's big and lofty, but I do genuinely believe that. There's Antrice, the philosopher.
I thought we were going to talk about technique.
Did you? We absolutely can.
I think, this whole confidence thing I know from my own personal experience, I mean, I've been involved in some sort of creative endeavor or of some sort of another for my entire adult life, but most of it is not as a painter, artist type person. And so the idea of being an artist has kind of always been there, but it's never been attainable until recently, in the last few years, that it's like even the possibility of it happening. But, I was thinking about, well, how can I do this? How can I make it work? How do I do this? And I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying before. It's like confidence is knowing that you can recover from even when you fail. And it's also, I think, knowing it's like, well, I can't get to where I want to go going this way. Maybe if I go this way and go over here and go down there and do this and being okay with the fact that, well, it might not look the way I thought it was going to look, but it looks like this, and this is okay. This is, this actually might be better. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that I've been stopped from doing something that 6 months or a year or 2 years later, I was like, God, I'm glad I couldn't do what I wanted to do. Because what I want to do is way better, and I'm much more happy about doing that. So, and I guess the other thing too, part of it, unfortunately, I think for me anyway, my experience, it comes with living and knowing and being able to decide day after day after day, this is important, this is not important, this is important, this is not important, this is important, this is important. And when I was younger, I was like, oh, that's important, ooh, that's important, and didn't have the same filter, whereas now it's like 90%, 95% is unimportant, and this 5% is important to me.
Yeah.
And
I like that.
Doesn't it sound like he's talking about a painting though? Like can you guys hear that?
But so the things that I used to think were important and I would measure my confidence level on are now, it's like, I don't even care about that anymore. It's not important to me. So, and even now, going back to you were talking about, I'm painting or creating all the time, every day. Even if I'm 99% of the time, I'm not physically doing something, but in my mind, I'm doing something. And it's like, and I'm thinking about, well, how can I do this? How can I make this happen? Or it's like, I need to hire somebody to do this. Well, if I don't have the money, how can I do this? Well, and just trying to, finagle my way to get to do what it is I want to do. I mean, the other thing too, one of your other questions too is, what advice you have to, if you haven't found your confidence, is I personally don't think confidence is something you find. It's something that grows in you. And the other thing too is, like, I think the best way to find confidence is to not even to look for it, but to follow what you're curious about and follow that and just pursue that and then continue to figure out, how can I get, that's interesting, let's pursue that. That's interesting, let's pursue that. And then you'll just naturally want to figure out how to do the thing you want to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't even become a question anymore, at least for me.
Since we kind of started this, we kind of started talking about when there's this bravado or this movement we go through as starting out as being really young and our levels of confidence has changed. Like I'd love to hear how you feel like your confidence has evolved. Alyssa, do you want to start with that?
Yeah. Evolution. Yeah, I mean, for some reason, when I was younger, I didn't consider myself like a creative person. I wasn't like a creative kid. I wasn't like exceptionally good at drawing. I wasn't in drama or whatever. But looking back on it, like all the classes that I loved were the art classes, and getting even the art classes I took in college. So I definitely did not have creative confidence then, because I just had it in my head that like I wasn't the creative person, like I was science and math, even though I danced too. And so I don't know, it just, as years went by, like it just kept coming up. And I just remember one time being like, I'm just gonna start making art because I want to. And it's just one of those things that, kept coming up. And so for whatever reason, creative confidence just spewed out right then. And I was like, we're just doing it. I don't know where it came from. And since then, it's been pretty steady, I feel like, where it's been that well of excitement, believing I can make whatever the heck that I want to. And now I think it's changed a little bit in the sense that like some of the confidence is also backed by like, I've seen myself do it now. Like it's not just faith. Like I've also seen myself do it. So it is, I don't know if it's more grounded or not, but it's a little different. And the other part of the creative confidence was also just once I did make the decision to leave the full-time job I had saved money and everything and took time to work on art and now working part-time, like I really at that point just trusted that if I just was honest with people about what my intentions were and I just kept following my nose and just followed that drive, whatever I was interested in, I just had the faith that it would work out. And it has proven time and time again, like at least in this community that I'm in, if you're talking about being interested in art and you're just genuine with people, like opportunities come your way, you meet people start giving you found objects. It's just like, and now I'm in this spot where I'm working part-time, getting exercise outside in the Eastern Sierra, and the other 4 days of the week I'm making art. And it's like Andrew said, I didn't picture that entirely. Like I didn't think this is what I was going to be doing, but it's like a really good balance. And it has shown me that, if I put my true intentions out there and follow my nose, things tend to work out. Not saying nothing will go wrong, but like you'll end up somewhere that you want to be, regardless of if it's where you thought you would be. So kind of following that flow and being open to living that creative life and just going with what feels right. And be interested the whole way.
Yeah. Just open and interested. And I love that. I mean, both of you bring this idea that part of that faith and that trust is that things do work out in your favor. We just have no idea how it's going to happen. Yeah. I think that's where the faith comes in, where it's just like, okay, if I keep pushing the ship in this direction, I'm going to get there. The winds might push me in other directions, but I mean, I've really found that as well. Like I'm thinking of all the points that you were making, Andrew, and it's like, even when you're convinced you're completely off track, you end up, in retrospect, realizing like, no, that was not how I would have chosen it or what I thought it was going to look like, but it was exactly what I needed. Wish I could tell that to my 19-year-old self. So funny.
I just said it's hard. She was just saying she wished she could tell her 19-year-old self that, and it's hard. It's hard to see that,
Yeah, you can't see it when you're in it. Yeah.
And even if someone told you, you probably wouldn't listen because half the creativity is figuring it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't have understood it. Like they could have told me and I would have just put, and yeah,
We've
we've
been like, oh,
Yeah.
exactly.
But what I wanted to say, and I think Alyssa was kind of saying, is that it almost feels like there's this internal navigational device that we have, and it's like you have your true north, and you have these different experiences, and some of them take you very far to the west, some of them take you all the way to the south, and you suddenly are like, I don't want to go there. And so then you set your course. And for me, I think the jobs that I've had have been so important. Like if someone had said to me, here's a studio when I graduated, here's a studio, just go paint, I wouldn't have liked that. I needed to figure out what the meaning of art is to the world, like what the value is. And somehow sitting in a studio and painting, of course, then you'd have to sell your paints and all of that. But it didn't feel right to me at the time. I needed to, like teaching was this incredible avenue where I was getting the confidence of my own voice. I was talking to people about art. Every day I had to be like one step ahead of everyone else. So I was able to study and to learn about all these different materials and techniques and then really stand in front of a room and talk and with authority. So that really gave me a lot of confidence. And then moments along the way, like Andrew was saying, when you get those positive reinforcement, like sometimes you come up against people who give you the impression like your work's not valuable, but then you find a person, a teacher, someone who says, you really got something, that's really cool, or someone wants to pay for your art, and then that's like $1 million. And so then you set your course in that direction, and then you keep getting more and more momentum. And then I was also thinking at the point in my life where I had children, the confidence to model for them what was so important to me was really important. And I did this series about female artists, and I had 2 little girls, and it just, there I was looking at the world thinking like, God, my girls are going to grow up in this world where they go into a museum and they just don't see female artists. So, that sort of gave me confidence through my kids of wanting to communicate and express myself, like to make a world where they look around and they see, people living their truth, thinking about the things that are important to them and taking risks and going for it.
Yeah. How do you all think that this sort of evolution of confidence and your confidence in general has impacted your work?
Not at all.
Don't know.
I can think of one way that I've seen it change my work, where I think the longer I've been working, the more, it hasn't been a very big reach, but the more I've reached out to people to work with me to do stuff, we've had local installation projects here that you can apply for. And instead of just applying for it by myself, which I did the year before, I talked to my partner and was like, do you want to do something with me? And so then we start there. And then, I don't know, it's just now that I know that I can put a project together, I can complete it, and then I can show it. Now I'm like, what's something else that I want to do that I can't really do, but I can bring people in? So it's almost like collaboration. So I'm doing like an installation, and I asked my partner to make some ceramic beads for it. So now he's making ceramic beads, and I see them and I'm like, wow, that is nothing like what I imagined. And that's great. And then I invited his mom to participate too, because she's a weaver. And so now she's weaving. And I think it's just fun for people to be in art projects, and maybe they don't think of themselves as artists. And then it's just really inspiring. It adds confidence to me when we get to like build this thing together and it comes out something I didn't even imagine. And then people are just so excited to see it. So that's something I see. And I hope that that keeps evolving, and I'm able to keep reaching out to other people to like bring them into work together, because it's really fun. Surprisingly, I didn't know I'd like collaboration so much, so yeah, it's been fun.
And that, I mean, I can see the confidence in that, just having kind of seen a piece of your evolution from, I'm not sure if I'm an artist to I'm an artist to now I'm bringing all these other people together.
Because I think you're an artist and I think you're an artist. And yeah. It's not like a competition thing or like, I just want it to be my thing. Like I even think about that when, I'm building pieces where I'm just using, we talked about last time, like parts of organic material or sticks. I'm like, should I, put co-creator Aspen Tree? Like I didn't just do this. It's like there's so much collaboration that goes on. And I think the more confident I get, the more input that I see everybody contributes, to what I've ended up making here. So that's just one thing that I haven't thought too much about, but I think it's going to like evolve as time goes on.
Yeah. And it sounds like you just start to see more and more opportunities and more like ways into your art that weren't there.
Yeah, I like that definition of it. Yeah, more avenues into it.
Yeah. What about you, Merrie?
I think the way that confidence most recently has been affecting my art is, I think maybe I have to back up and say that at times the lack of confidence made me go over a painting too much, like doubt that what I was doing looked good. So there would be, in one painting, there might be like 5 or 6 layers, because I was constantly doubting that it looked good, and I kept adding more. And I think that what I'm doing now is that my confidence is giving me the ability to be more efficient and not get in those work loops where I have some thought that it's not looking good, and then I kind of go over a bunch of stuff. So instead, I just stop when I have one of those, like errant thoughts or anxious moment. And this is 100% and a gift from Trees and Growth Studio, which is to take those moments and stop and ground myself and make sure that the moves that I'm making with my brush and with my colors are authentically what I want them to be and how I want them to be. And I also have this really great conversation in my head where, like, I know if I make a mistake or if I go over that color that, I liked before, I can always go back to it because I made it. It's mine. So just like this healthy conversation and like really trying to separate the dark thoughts and, it's just helped me to be such a more efficient and confident painter.
I love it. And thank you, by the way. Andrew, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just trying to think of an answer to your question. So it's I don't think in my life experience, confidence is like a fixed point. There are some things that I'm really super confident in, some things that I'm not so confident in. So it's like, if you wanted me to say, can you fly this plane? My confidence level would be really super low. So, and part of it is, do I feel like I have the skills necessary to do the task at hand? And that, greatly affects my confidence level. So, but in terms of art making, I think, and this is kind of also due to the Real Studio too. I think one thing that's changed my confidence levels, increased, is giving me the ability to imagine art making in very different ways than I did 2, 3, 4 years ago. And so I'm thinking in terms of things that I never thought of before, and it's allowing me to go into areas that are really super interesting for me.
What's an example of that?
Well, it's stuff that you haven't seen yet. But so I've been working on some ideas for the last year or so that are very, very different from anything I've ever done before. But it's my confidence has allowed me to explore other areas that I would, 4 years ago, I probably wouldn't even thought of it as an idea, because I was just kind of like, I'm in this, representational, mode, and this is the road. This is who I am. And then some things happen, and I did some experimenting, and it's like, oh, maybe this isn't the only way I can go. I can do other things, and it just kind of opened up other areas of creativity and possibilities.
Yeah.
Whereas 4 years ago, I don't think I would have necessarily been open to that. So it's kind of cool.
It's very cool. And it kind of comes back to, having the confidence to follow our instinct, having the confidence to listen to our own voice and our own curiosity of like, hey, I'm really curious about this other thing over here. And on the surface, it looks like it has nothing to do with the art that I'm creating, but I'm going to go play. I'm going to go like play in that sandbox a little bit. I was thinking as I was listening to you all talk, and I know I've said this, you guys have probably heard me say this a number of times, but just in case anyone listening hasn't heard this, I think it is really, really important to distinguish your understanding or our definitions of confidence and self-confidence and arrogance. Because as we were talking, a question like, I was like, oh, this will be a fun question to ask, would be like, can you have too much confidence? And I think that when, a lot of people think of too much confidence, they equate that with arrogance. And just for the purposes of this conversation, I just want to give a couple of my definitions for those three words, which we've been kind of like, we've been circling around and we've been touching on it. But, for me, confidence is that root that Merrie described, and it is everything that we've been talking about. And confidence has, for me, an element of, I have experience with this and I've done this before, right? And so I have this evidence to sort of to draw on in a way. But self-confidence is where we really come into that place of where the faith is of, I believe in my capacity, even if I've never done this before, even if I've never flown an airplane, which I have not, right? But I can draw on, with my self-confidence, I can draw on, well, I've learned how to drive a car before. And when I learned how to drive a car, that seemed very complicated, stick shifts and all that fun stuff. And so I have the self-confidence that if I had the proper instruction, if I went and found a person who I trusted to teach me, and I put that, and I studied, learned, and did all the things, that I could fly an airplane, right? So no, if you put me in an airplane right now, please don't, no, nobody would be safe, right? So there's those two distinctions for me, that self-confidence really is the belief in my capacity to figure it out, to do it, to do something, to have my own back and all these other things. And then arrogance to me is, the way that I interpret arrogance, at least, is arrogance requires another person. And it requires me to believe that I am superior to that person. So for me to be arrogant, another person needs to be involved in that, whether they know it or not, right? And the dangerous part about it is that in order for me to, if somebody really is basing their value as an artist or a person or fill in the blank on that level of arrogance. What they need to feel good about themselves and what they need to feel good about their art is there has to be that person who's less than they are, or they'll never feel it. And so arrogance to me is like in another ballpark from confidence because of all of those things. Okay, so I just took a really long time to set up a question that I want to ask you all to really consider is, can you have too much confidence in your painting, in your practice? We've never touched on this, so I'm throwing you a curveball. Curious what your thoughts are on that.
I guess you can have too much confidence, but maybe you can only find out in retrospect. I mean, usually too much confidence implies that the goal that you were trying to achieve was missed, usually pretty dramatically so. And so you don't really know that necessarily until after the fact.
Right.
You know, I mean, one person's overconfidence could be, you could be internalized as I'm confident in my ability to do it, and somebody else can interpret that as you're an arrogant so and so. You know,
They could.
but I don't know. I think the confidence that we're talking about and what you described, entries, which I totally agree with. It's not really a bravado. It's more of understanding of who you are as an individual and what you want to do as with your life. So going back to what I was talking about before, you said, I know from what I've done in the past that I can find somebody and acquire the skills to fly an airplane. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. It's like, yeah, I could do that, but do I want to do that? Is this?
Oh, totally. Yeah, that's a completely different question. Yeah.
Is this important to me? But it goes back to confidence. Confidence is like, I know who I am as a person, more or less, and I know where I want to go, and I know what's important to me, come hell or water, and that's where I'm going, and I'm willing to endure failure. I'm willing to endure disappointment. I'm willing to endure delay, or whatever, to get where it is I want to go. And I'm even willing to allow it to be, in the end, not to be exactly what I pictured it to be in the beginning, and that's okay.
Yeah, and it's probably not going to be what we picture because it never is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but can you be a jerk? Yeah, sure. Of course you can be a jerk.
No, I didn't say jerk. I said, can you have too much confidence?
Okay. Well, if you define too much confidence in being arrogant and having to have an other.
I don't define too much confidence. No, to me. So that's the question.
Okay.
That's what to me, I was making it interesting. So arrogance, and if you completely separate arrogance from confidence, because arrogance needs another person to be beneath you in order to exist, is my hypothesis.
I think I was just thinking that confidence without patience can maybe result in too much confidence. If I'm going back to when I first wanted to be, to do art, and I was like, I believe in myself. I believe that I can be an artist. I can sell work and get in a museum. But if I'm and I'm going to do that tomorrow, and I have yet to paint a painting, then that time scale might be a little off. But if you have the confidence that you can do the things you want or whatever, but I don't even want to say you're not based in reality, but you're willing to kind of what Andrew said. Yeah. Endure it, be patient, know that you'll get there, or that you'll be able to do this thing that you want. I think patience comes with confidence, reins it in, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know the answer to this, by the way. I mean, obviously, I don't know I would say that I don't know the answer to anything.
Good. There's no quiz.
There's no quiz on this. There's no test and there's no grading. But no, it's just it's an interesting thing to think about because because of all the assumptions that we kind of internally have and how that impacts our painting, right? And how that impacts what we do in the studio. Because yeah, if we allow ourselves to really kind of play around with those ideas, it can have I think, a very profound impact on what happens in our studio. What do you think, Merrie?
No, she looked like she had some good, insightful information.
I know.
It's so funny because I was trying to make some sort of logical, was like, okay, if arrogance requires another person, and I was trying to make some like rational, like arithmetic problem, but I could not make it make sense. But what I finally came down to is like, I think confidence is all good. Like, if you're overly confident and you come up against a problem, you can self-correct and you can fix it. And, I think the part where, if someone who is overly confident, who is arrogant and haughty, those are sort of, there's a vice there, but I don't totally, I think so much of confidence and creativity comes from love. And I just don't see like why one would take someone else down so they can like,
which is why, like that's arrogance. That's not confidence. Confidence to me is, and self-confidence in particular is, I'll figure this out. Kind of like what Andrew is saying, like come hell or high water. My mom used to say that all the time. Yeah. But come hell or high water.
And it always seems like the people who I have met who are very successful artists have so much humility. And and I think that there's like just you're so confident that you're humble, that you don't need someone to be like, oh, you're so great and we love your art. And, it's, in fact, it's kind of annoying.
Yeah. Which is, which again is what is like, that is arrogance, right? And confidence to me, like it's not there in confidence, like you're saying. Yeah. I'm agreeing and reiterating. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the change and evolution of confidence. And I would love to hear how that has impacted your risk taking either in your painting, in your practice, what that looks like for you. I mean, I think Alyssa, you've touched on it a little bit with this idea of like, and now I'm collaborating with other people. Like here I am, like taking those kind of risks, which, at a certain point it is a slight risk. What are your thoughts on that?
So the question is, how has it changed your risk taking?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how your confidence impacts your desire to, or just taking risks.
Yeah, I think, when I first started showing my work and trying to get involved locally, I would pretty much do like any project that came in sight, which was great. And I'm really happy that I did that because I had the confidence to be like, all right, I'll paint a mural. Sure, I'll paint a mural. And then the next time it came around, it was, I'll paint it on a wall instead of panels and in front of people. And so it like slowly evolved. And then I think I still kind of had that tug every time I'd see something come up. I'd be like, I got to do that. And I got to do that. And then I kind of slowly was like, I don't have to do that. I can, like I was able to hone in, a little bit, not quite like Andrew's 95% is not important, but maybe like floated in just a couple percent of like, okay, like now I know really what I want to do. And is that or a little more what I'm going to do. And is that project going to lead me in that direction? Am I following that true north arrow? And so, as the confidence has gone up, the need to like put my art, apply to everything that comes out, do every art project in the community has decreased. It's not that I don't want to do it anymore, but my judgment and the true north has, I've been using that a little bit more to make the decisions. And know that I can make the decisions on my timeline. It doesn't have to be everybody else's timeline.
Mm-hmm. And how has being in growth studio helped with your confidence?
Is this for Alyssa or all of us?
For all of you?
Well, I can chime in on that. Like when I started Growth Studio, I was having a dip in my confidence and I wasn't sure where my art was going at that time. And the act of meeting other artists and hearing that whatever was going on with me, that I was actually not unusual and in fact quite normal, and that everyone else was having all the same issues. Money, what, like, let's talk about money. Like, how many times have we? So there was just such a deep exhale of finding this group of people who were so closely, like, experiencing the things that I was feeling. And in the beginning, and everyone says this when they start, is, it's kind of hard. You're the first time you speak, the first time you show your work, we all talk like you're like sweating and, it's a lot. And there's all this sensitivity and there's all this emotion wrapped around it. And then you do it and it's fine because it's really productive and it really helps you, and I think before Growth Studio, the critiques that I went to were not constructive. In fact, they felt a little bit destructive. So to have this new like neural pathway of like, oh, I can show my work and then get really good advice and take it or leave it, but it's really going to help me and make me a better artist, was just huge. And so it gave me confidence to show my work, to speak about my work, to speak about the things that scared me, knowing that other people were also having those problems. And then also how to kind of take the emotion and the intensity out of everything. Like I think Antrice early on, well, first of all, I love that everything, like you laugh all the time and we laugh all the time. And like just this idea that like, what are we making such a big deal about it? It's just a bunch of pigment on, like cotton or, like when you just kind of like just scroll back and look at it, it's just so cool to have some perspective.
Yeah. It's all just ground up dirt and oil smeared on cotton fibers.
Right. No big deal.
Yeah. No big deal. No big deal. How about you, Andrew?
I'm going to be boring because my answers are pretty much identical to hers. But no, I really think you can't really underestimate being in a group of your peers and knowing that the things that you're feeling, the things you're experiencing, the emotions you're having are pretty typical. I think I remember the first few growth studios I was in, and people were talking about what they were dealing with. It's like, oh my goodness, wow, it's exactly the same thing I'm dealing with. It's like I'm not the only person who deals with this stuff. And I guess the other thing too is it's my tribe, so to speak. I mean, I'm kind of unusual because my wife's a dancer, so she's creative, and my daughter's now getting a BFA in sculpture, so she's creative. So I'm surrounded by a bunch of creative people. But outside of that, most people, they you talk about the creative process or painting, and, they look like, you're from Mars or something like that. It's like, what are you talking about? So just knowing that other people are dealing with it and talking through it, and it's like helps you kind of model it and internalizing some of the things that you realize that you were doing that weren't necessarily too healthy, and getting rid of them. Those definitely have helped helps improve my confidence. So, I think being isolated is really, really, really difficult to be.
How about you, Alyssa?
I feel like Growth Studio has tested my self-confidence because I realized that pretty much everything that I'd done art-wise before I went into Growth Studio, there was if I would show work, I guess people could say things, but people don't usually critique my art in front of me. Whatever they say that's bad, I don't hear it. And so this was the first time that I got real instruction, which was from listening to all the critiques and seeing how you're seeing the work. And that was all of those concepts of value and seeing shapes and color mixing, all these things that you think about when you're painting. That was really the first instruction I had. And I was I don't do any of that. These are all new concepts to me. And so I think it was a little bit of a kick in the pants of okay, there's a ton of techniques to learn that I don't know how to learn. And it feels a little overwhelming because when you try to implement them all at once, you're then this shape and this value and this, put this color over here. And it feels like a lot. And so I think it tested me now that I was given techniques and here's ways to do things, where before I just did whatever the heck I wanted. And that was the right way. But I mean, it's fine. It's great. I love learning all of that stuff. And if I ever start feeling this is a lot and this painting that I just did doesn't include all these other things we talked about, I can still use what we talked about in the coaching calls and be yeah, but we learned this one thing and we're trying it out and we didn't know why this painting wasn't working before, but it's because all your values were midtones. And now I can see that. So it's really exciting, but also, yes, it was a little bit of a challenge to that when I realized my art didn't have any of those aspects. Okay. We've got some work to do.
Yeah. And all the time to do it. Right. And meaning it's our choice, what pace we learn something. We don't have to learn everything all at once. It can be sort of dictated by, okay, this is the painting I'm working on. What does this painting need me to know?
Oh, and edges. I had no idea about edges. I was took me a minute to figure out what you were talking about. Edges. Oh, I see it. Hard edges and soft edges. Cool.
Since we just kind of dove right into this, will you all do me the favor of introducing yourself now that you're all just tell us, what's your name? Where are you? And you can think of it this way, what kind of work do you do or what are you working on now? Either however feels most comfortable. Merrie, do you want to go first?
Hi, I am Merrie Coolert, and I mostly paint with oils, but I love all kinds of paint, gouache, acrylic. Right now, I'm mostly working on nocturnal landscapes, but typically I would think of myself as a portrait painter.
Andrew, do you want to go?
Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm currently working on abstraction. Been doing representational painting for a long time. I've done watercolor, oil, acrylics, gouache. So I'm actually even looking into doing some sculpture. So, and I'm not really sure where it's going, to be perfectly with you, but definitely an abstraction direction.
Cannot wait to see this whenever you're ready to show it, but I'm so excited.
And I'm Alyssa Marquez. I live in California in the Eastern Sierra, and I am a mixed media artist. And right now I'm working on a series of abstract wood pieces that are primarily made with the scroll saw, but also just some other random wood scraps and found objects. And I will be showing that soon. So I'm very excited.
Thank you guys so much for doing this with me and for sharing so generously of yourselves. I really appreciate it. And I know that a lot of people listening are going to just love this episode. Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Alyssa, Andrew, and Merrie. You can see examples of their work in the show notes of this episode. And if you are ready to join Growth Studio, you know that we would love to have you. It is an incredible experience. You get live coaching with me every week, as well as critiques and weekly art chats. Your art will improve and you will feel more confident and free in your studio. Whether your studio is a dedicated space or a corner of your kitchen or you're out in the field, just go to savvypainter.com/join or look for the link in the show notes. Until the next time, this is Antrice Wood with the Savvy Painter Podcast. Talk to you soon. Hey, if you want to take what you are learning here on the Savvy Painter Podcast even further, join us in Growth Studio. This is where you will take what you've learned here on the podcast and apply it, practice it, and take these concepts from just good ideas that maybe you'll do someday to habits that become part of your practice. Growth Studio is a unique community of artists. We meet multiple times a week for live coaching, critiques, and demos. Just go to savvypainter.com/join.